Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Francis Entertainment Center. Last stories today are Graveyard Shift and Krusty Love. Enjoy the video. One night, the Krusty Krab staff prepares for its 8 p.m. closing, which comes none too soon for Squidward. However, Incidental 6 walks up to the door and attempts to make an order. Squidward smugly informs him that they are closed, and the customer prepares to take his money elsewhere. Realizing the financial potential of a late-night shift, Mr. Krab tears apart the close sign and, against Squidward's wishes, proclaims the Krusty Krab to now be open 24 hours a day. Mr. Krabs then promptly leaves his employees while SpongeBob is overjoyed at this prospect and, as the night goes on, takes pleasure in the tasks he had no time to do during the day. When the time comes to take out the trash, however, he shows some trepidation towards the darkness outside. After going outside screaming to throw away the trash, he comes back in and calls it an easy task. Squidward, sensing SpongeBob's fear, weaves him a terrifying tale on the spot of a hash-slinging slasher, a clumsy Krusty Krab fried cook from years past who accidentally chopped off his hand, had it replaced with a rusty spatula. Due to fatally being run over by a bus and posthumous termination, the horrific specter returns every Tuesday night, though Squidward only puts this detail in the story when SpongeBob told him that it was Tuesday, to exact vengeance on all who reside in the restaurant. Squidward goes on to explain the 3 signs of the ghost's return: the lights flickering on and off, the phone ringing with no one at the other end, and the arrival of the bus that had run the fry cook over. Squidward then laughs at SpongeBob's streaks of fright, but when SpongeBob continues screaming, an annoyed Squidward tells SpongeBob that he was joking and that the story is not true. 3 a.m. soon arrives, and the restaurant is now completely devoid of customers or any other signs of life besides SpongeBob and Squidward. Whilst contending with SpongeBob's diligent ceiling washing, Squidward expresses bafflement at the idea of the Krusty Krab being open 24 hours a day, wondering who would want a Krabby Patty at the time. Ironically, a cutaway gang shows Patrick excitedly waking up at this hour specifically to eat a Krabby Patty. Suddenly, the lights begin flickering, though Squidward initially thinks SpongeBob is doing it in a failed attempt to scare him. After realizing that nobody's touching the light switch, Squidward then blames the faulty electric wiring, as the restaurant was not built to run 24 hours a day. Next moment, the phone rings, but remains silent when Squidward answers. This time, SpongeBob thinks that Squidward is trying to scare him, but the latter denies this and becomes more nervous, as these are 2 of the 3 signs that supposedly signal the arrival of the hash-slinging slasher. While trying to remember the 3rd sign, a bus pulls up to the Krusty Krab, even though the buses supposedly do not run so late. Its lone departing passenger is a shadow-covered figure with what appears to be glowing red eyes, wielding a spatula. Fearing it to be the hash-slinging slasher, Squidward screams in horror. SpongeBob states that he is dressed up as the ghost across the street to entertain him, as he loves him. However, there are flaws in SpongeBob's theory that Squidward explained. The first thing is that he hates him, and the other thing is how the ghost is standing across the street as him when he is standing right next to him. Having thought about Squidward's argument, the hash-slinging slasher taps on the door, which made SpongeBob scream in horror as well. Leaving the events they witnessed to be supernatural, a frightened SpongeBob and Squidward say their final words. Squidward says SpongeBob that he's sorted like him, and SpongeBob says to Squidward that he uses the latter's clarinet to unclog his toilet. As the figure approaches the counter, when the figure enters the light, however, he turns out to be just an ordinary person holding a spatula in a fully intact hand, which had been covered by his sleeve. He asks for a job application and reveals that he was the one who called earlier but hung up before speaking because he was nervous. Relieved, SpongeBob asks the applicant if he has any references, though Squidward notes that this turn of events does not explain the lights flickering. As if to answer his question, the lights flicker again, revealing the culprit to be none other than the vampire Nosferatu, portrayed by the late Max Schreck. They casually tease him, as if this is a well-known habit to Krusty Krab staff and clients alike. Smiling at the trio mischievously, he flicks the lights on and off once more, cutting to black. At the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs' keen sense of smell informs him that his cash register has a defect of 1 penny. As he cries over it, SpongeBob reassures him that losing a penny is not a big deal. Mr. Krabs, however, sees that money is a very big deal, considering all that it can buy, and proclaims that nothing in the world matters more. Nothing, that is, except for the beautiful visions of Mrs. Puffin he suddenly spies. SpongeBob tells him who she is and offers to introduce the two of them. Despite Mr. Krabs' pleas that he's too old for love, SpongeBob brings him over to Mrs. Puff's table. However, Mr. Krabs becomes extremely nervous, and his attempts to communicate with her result in him talking in unintelligible speech, as well as making strange body movements. SpongeBob steps in, and after 2 wrong guesses, he tells Mrs. Puff that Mr. Krabs is trying to ask her out on a date. Surprisingly, she finds Mr. Krabs to have quite a way with words and accepts his offer, much to his joy. That night, Mr. Krabs takes Mrs. Puff to a fancy restaurant and showers her with lavish services. 4 foot rubs in between courses, hurricanes, live music from a scuba diver, and transportation in a limousine. Mr. Krabs then receives a bill and is outraged that he is being charged $100 as a fake account. A waiter apologizes for his mistake and hands him with the real bill upon seeing his actual bill, which ends up costing him $100,000. A horrified Mr. Krabs screams so loudly that it causes the cork to pop out and the glass bottle that the restaurant is contained within to explode. Back at home, Mr. Krabs sobs hysterically as SpongeBob questions him on how he could spend such a ridiculous amount of money in one night. Mr. Krabs says that in his infatuated state, he couldn't help himself. He starts to worry about how much money he'll lose on his date following day. Then gets an idea. He gives SpongeBob his wallet, tells him to come along on the date to prevent him from spending any more money. The next day arrives. Mr. Krabs decides the most cost-effective activity would be to take Mrs. Puff to the park. But after arriving at Mrs. Puff's house, Mr. Krabs commands SpongeBob to buy Mrs. Puff flowers and a box of chocolates, as well as a large amount of increasingly inexpensive, unnecessary things. Unfortunately, each time SpongeBob returns with the requested purchase, Mr. Krabs gets mad and scolds him for breaking their agreement, despite SpongeBob trying to tell him he was making him spend money in the first place. Eventually, a tired and fed-up SpongeBob calls him out on his hypocrisy, to which Mr. Krabs laments that he does not want to lose Mrs. Puff, but still waiting to go to the park as she sits upon the mountain of gifts and sobs again. Feeling bad, SpongeBob leaves and comes back with a washing machine that Mr. Krabs supposedly asked for. The latter once again sold SpongeBob for spending his money, makes a snide comment, and wonders whether Mrs. Puff will need a dryer as well. Finally, having enough, SpongeBob snaps and badmouths Mr. Krabs off for his behavior before angrily leaving the area. A shocked Mrs. Puff walks up to an even more shocked Mr. Krabs and calmly tells him that for her part, she does not feel comfortable accepting many expensive gifts, preferring to go Dutch. She hands Mr. Krabs some money while calling him sweet and kisses him, leaving him utterly love-struck.